Hello and welcome to Unacademy IAS English, a one-stop destination for the English medium civil services aspirants. Welcome to Conquer Prelims 2025. This is stage 1 of a comprehensive 5-stage program to help you prepare for the upcoming prelims examination. Under stage 1, we are covering the most important current affairs topics from across subjects from the period January to May 2024. This is lecture 2 of international relations. Yesterday in lecture 1, we have already covered 14 important topics from IR. Today, we will attempt to cover at least 16 topics, not just from international relations, but also a few topics from internal security, as both the subjects are closely related. And in fact, last year, UPSC asked 3 direct questions from internal security as well. So let's get started. But before that, ensure you subscribe to my Telegram channel by scanning the QR code, because after the session ends, I shall be sharing the PDF of this session on my Telegram channel. And if you guys are benefiting from our initiatives, do support us with your likes, your comments, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. So let's start with topic number 15, INS Jatayu. Let's start with a practice question. Read the statements carefully and try to attempt this question, and then we'll discuss the entire topic in detail. Which of the following statements is or are correct? INS Jatayu is India's first naval base in the strategic Lakshadweep Islands. It will enhance Indian Navy's operational reach, facilitate its anti-piracy, anti-narcotics operations near Strait of Malacca. It is meant to host India's nuclear arsenal for deterring China. Which of these statements are correct? Some are saying B, A, C. Okay, let's look at the correct answer. Let's evaluate these statements one by one. Statement 1 is incorrect. Why? Because INS Jatayu, which was commissioned last year, it is not the first naval base of India in the Lakshadweep Islands. It's actually the second naval base. Second statement is also incorrect. It will enhance the operational reach of the Indian Navy to counter organized crime and piracy and drug trafficking, but however, not near Malacca Strait. The Strait of Malacca is in Southeast Asia. So this naval base, which was commissioned last year, will enhance our naval operations in the western part of Arabian Sea towards Gulf of Aden, Horn of Africa, and the Arabian Gulf. So that is why second statement is also incorrect. The third statement is also incorrect. This new naval base of India in the Lakshadweep will definitely help deter China and its growing military presence, but there are no plans to station any nuclear arsenal on this important island. That's why all the 3 statements are wrong. Option D, none of the above, is the correct answer. Now let's look a little deeper into this topic, because there are related points based on which questions can be asked in prelims. Let's see where INS Jatayu has been established. This strategic naval base has been set up at the Minicoy Island of the Lakshadweep archipelago. Now, please look at the map here. There are some important locations that you need to be familiar with. Here you can see the Minicoy Island over here. This is where INS Jatayu has been set up. It is present between the 9-degree and 8-degree channel. The 8-degree channel that represents 8-degree north latitude, it separates Minicoy Island of Lakshadweep from Maldives. The 9-degree channel separates Minicoy from the rest of the Lakshadweep archipelago. Now, both these channels are very, very crucial for global shipping. These are very important sea lanes of communication. Essentially, it's a vital shipping route, a trade route that connects Europe and Persian Gulf with Indian Ocean and Southeast Asia. So through these channels, there is a lot of shipping traffic that passes through, and stabilizing these waters is a critical priority for India's security and economic interests. In the same map, you can also see the Duncan Passage and the 10-degree channel in the Bay of Bengal towards Andaman and Nicobar. The Duncan Passage is present between the Rut Island, which is part of the Andaman group, because to the north of Duncan Passage, you have Great and South Andaman. And to the south of Duncan Passage, you have Little Andaman. Then the 10-degree channel separates the entire Andaman group from the Nicobar group. To the north of 10-degree channel, we have Little Andaman, and to the south, we have Car Nicobar. Again, both the passages are very important sea lanes of communication, very crucial for maritime trade, for global shipping, as the ships coming from Persian Gulf and Red Sea route, they pass through these channels as they access Malacca Strait to reach Southeast Asia. So from India's point of view, securing these shipping channels is of great significance because there are multiple security threats present all across this region. And that is why this new naval base in Lakshadweep is of great importance for Indian Navy. In fact, in 2012, we had already set up the first naval base, INS Dweep Rakshak, at the Kavarati Island in Lakshadweep. So INS Jatayu becomes the second naval base which has been set up at the Minicoy Island. Please remember these facts and as well as the locations that I just showed you, because you can expect geography-based, map-based questions as well. Now, India plans to deploy advanced military assets at INS Jatayu. We are planning to deploy the MH-60 Romeo helicopters, which we have procured from United States, which is very useful for maritime surveillance, and as well as it is known for its anti-submarine warfare capabilities. We are also planning to deploy P-8I Poseidon, which India has procured again from the United States, which is also used for maritime reconnaissance and as well as for anti-submarine warfare. So what does this tell you? It clearly tells you that through INS Jatayu and INS Dweep Rakshak in Lakshadweep, India also plans to counter the rising naval presence of China in the Indian Ocean, particularly in the Arabian Sea. It will not only help us to counter piracy from Somalia near Horn of Africa and Gulf of Aden, or to counter the threats posed by the Houthis of Yemen who have disrupted shipping in the region. It will also help us counter organized crime, drug trafficking, narcotics, arms trafficking, and also counter China's rising presence and influence, especially the rising presence of the PLA Navy. India also plans to deploy advanced fighter jets once the runway here is expanded. In the future, Indian Air Force might be deploying the Sukhoi and Rafale fighter jets, which would essentially become a forward operating base for India. See, that's why experts, they believe that such small islands that are located far away from the mainland, they are like unsinkable aircraft carriers. That is the reason why small islands have a lot of strategic significance. This will allow India to not only dominate the Arabian Sea and the western part of Indian Ocean, it will help in protecting the trade routes and the shipping channels that pass through 8-degree and 9-degree channel. It will help us keep a watch on the shipping traffic through the network of radars that are being installed as well. So this is a big development that happened last year, and that is why all these topics, all these points that we have discussed can be very important. Now let's look at topic number 16. Again, related to IR and as well as security. The BrahMos ER missile, BrahMos extended range missile. So let's start with the question. Which of the below given statements is or are correct? BrahMos extended range supersonic cruise missile has a range of 800 to 900 kilometers. The earlier version of BrahMos missile's range was capped at 290 kilometers to avoid violation of the norms set by the MTCR, Missile Technology Control Regime. BrahMos has been exported to Philippines, Indonesia and Vietnam and is currently deployed in the South China Sea by all the three countries. Which of these statements is or are correct? Take a few seconds. Let me know the correct answer. Most of you are saying B. Very good. Statement 1 and 2 both are correct, whereas statement 3 is incorrect. So the right answer would be B. 1. Defeat most of the air defense systems in the world, purely because of its supersonic speed, which is above Mach 3, and it is also maneuverable mid-flight. So it can be used for precision targeted operations, for surgical strikes. Let's say, for example, to hit an enemy base or a terror camp, or to target a specific enemy ship in the sea. So BrahMos is a two-stage supersonic cruise missile. The first stage is powered by a solid propellant, which propels the missile to almost supersonic speed. Then the liquid ramjet engine takes over. The air-breathing liquid ramjet engine, which provides the supersonic speed during mid-flight. So BrahMos can carry conventional warheads, and potentially it can be mated with a nuclear warhead as well if necessary. The initial version of BrahMos that was developed, its range was kept limited to 290 kilometers for the Indian version of the missile. The Indian variant of BrahMos, the range was limited to 290 kilometers. Whereas the Russian variant already had an extended range beyond 300 kilometers. The reason why the Indian variant of BrahMos was kept limited in its range to under 300 is because of MTCR restrictions. The Missile Technology Control Regime, it's an export control regime that restricts critical missile and UAV technologies from being exported to a non-member if the technology can be used to build a missile or a UAV which can fly more than 300 kilometers, which can carry more than 500 kilograms of payload. This is a cap set by MTCR. MTCR members, around 35 countries which are part of it, they are restricted, prohibited from exporting critical missile and UAV technologies from the aerospace sector to non-members who might use these technologies to build a missile or a drone, which can fly more than 300 kilometers and carry a payload of more than 500 kilograms. Now, India, until recently, was not a member of MTCR. That is the reason why we had to keep the range restricted to 290 kilometers, or else Russia would have been in breach of MTCR obligations. But in 2016, with the help of United States and other countries, we joined MTCR, and since then, India has full freedom to extend the range of BrahMos. So that is the reason why India has been working upon extending the range, and gradually over the last few years, the range of BrahMos has been extended. It was scaled up to around 450 to 600 kilometers initially. But now the new variant, the BrahMos ER, extended range variant, it has a range of 800 to 900 kilometers. Experts believe that it can even be easily extended to beyond 1,000 kilometers if necessary. So last year, Indian Armed Forces, particularly the Navy, placed a large order for BrahMos extended range missile. Then did you know there is another variant of BrahMos which is under development, the BrahMos 2K. The second variant of BrahMos, named after Abdul Kalam, as a tribute to Abdul Kalam, the K has been added. The BrahMos 2K is a hypersonic variant of the BrahMos. It is based on the Zircon hypersonic missile of Russia. So this missile is also under development. Now the BrahMos has been so effective and versatile that many countries have shown interest in procuring it. Since it is almost undefeated by any air defense system because of its tremendous supersonic speed and its accuracy and the versatility it offers. It can be fired from land, from fighter jets, and as well as from ships which are fitted with the BrahMos. So because of its versatility, many countries have shown interest, and Philippines became the first country to procure the BrahMos from India. In 2023, the deal was finalized. India has already supplied the initial batteries of BrahMos to Philippines as it faces a threat from China in the South China Sea. As China has been very aggressive in the South China Sea with regard to the maritime disputes, where China threatens Philippines Navy and Coast Guard. That's why Philippines has procured the naval variant, the anti-ship variant, to act as a deterrent against the Chinese Navy. So this marks India's foray into China's backyard, if China can arm India's neighbors and try to contain, encircle India in the Indian Ocean, so can India encircle China in the South China Sea. Now, many other Southeast Asian countries are also showing interest. It's reported that Indonesia is all set to sign a similar deal, but it has not been signed yet. In a few days, by next week on 26 January, on Republic Day, Indonesian president will be the chief guest for the Republic Day parade, and it is widely expected that the BrahMos deal might be signed between India and Indonesia. Vietnam also is in the last stage of concluding a deal with India. There are very strong reports that India-Vietnam also might finalize the BrahMos deal. Even other countries like Malaysia have shown interest. So many Southeast Asian countries and even others like Egypt, UAE and others are showing interest in the BrahMos. So it shows the export potential of the missile. So that's why the third statement was wrong. Right now, it's only Philippines which has procured and deployed it. Indonesia, Vietnam are yet to sign the agreement. Clear? Now let's look at the next topic. Topic number 17, the ICC, International Criminal Court, which has been in the news over the last couple of years. Which of the following countries are not state parties to the Rome Statute of ICC? These are the countries mentioned. Please go ahead, try to answer this question. Let's see how many of you can answer this. India, Israel, US, Russia, China. Which of them are not state parties to the Rome Statute that has established the ICC or the International Criminal Court? Most of you are saying D, but some are saying A and C as well. Okay. The right answer is option D. All the 5 given countries here in the question, none of them are parties to the Rome Statute. None of them are part of the ICC. Now let's see why the topic is important. Why was it in news? And let's study some important details about ICC, as a prelims question is very likely from this topic. See, in the last couple of years, with regard to the ongoing conflicts in Ukraine and in Gaza, both Russia and Israel are accused of using disproportionate force and committing gross human rights violations. In this regard, the ICC, as per its mandate given under the Rome Statute, took up the investigation and prosecution of the leaders of Russia and Israel, and Russian President Vladimir Putin has been accused of war crimes and crimes against humanity, and an arrest warrant was issued against him by the ICC. This essentially has prevented Putin from traveling to most countries, because the other state parties who are party to Rome Statute, who are part of ICC, they will be under an obligation to arrest Putin if he lands in their country. Then more recently, arrest warrants were issued against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, his former defense minister, and as well as few Hamas leaders for being responsible for the atrocities and violence that we have seen in Israel and in Gaza over the last 1.5 years. So that is why the topic is very important. The Rome Statute was adopted in 1998 and it came into force in 2002. It establishes the ICC, the International Criminal Court, to hold those who commit international crimes accountable, prosecute them, and to punish them. So the Rome Statute focuses on 4 types of international crimes. Which are these crimes? Crime number 1, genocide. As defined under the Genocide Convention, if any state or any party attempts to destroy an entire group of people or an entire community because of their nationality, their ethnicity or race, such an offense where a mass killing is carried out to exterminate an entire group of people because of their identity, such an act is termed as a genocide. Crimes against humanity, the second crime. If there is any attempt in a conflict to inflict large-scale violence against a community, which includes deliberate murders, rapes, forced disappearances of civilians, if civilians are willingly targeted in any war or in any conflict, the concerned leaders and officials who are responsible for these crimes will be held accountable under crimes against humanity. Then war crimes. If there is a specific breach of the Geneva Conventions, the 4 Geneva Conventions, which prohibits the targeting of civilians and non-combatants. It prohibits the targeting of POWs. It mandates that prisoners of war who are captured in conflict should be treated with dignity. It mandates that even if combatants or soldiers are injured, they can't be targeted by the enemy. If such crimes are reported, or if deliberate attacks are carried out against civilian infrastructure like schools, hospitals, historical monuments, those acts get labeled as war crimes. In fact, if any country tries to disrupt the supply of essentials to civilians in a war zone, supplies of water, food, medical aid, this is also labeled as crimes against humanity. Then finally, crime of aggression. If one country disrespects the sovereignty of the other and uses military aggression to breach the integrity of another nation, this is qualified as crime of aggression. So for these 4 violations, the leaders and officials who are responsible for these decisions that led to these crimes, they can be held accountable, they can be investigated, and they can be prosecuted by the ICC. Now, please understand, ICC does not prosecute an entire country. It's not Russia which is being investigated or Israel which is being investigated. It's the leaders of Russia, essentially the individual leaders, the presidents, prime ministers, or defense ministers, or the senior military officials, intelligence officials, who are responsible for these decisions that lead to these crimes. They are investigated, prosecuted, and arrest warrants are issued against them. Now, who can push these cases? Who can push such cases to be investigated and prosecuted? 1, the state parties to Rome Statute. Those who are signatory to Rome Statute and those who are members of ICC, they can refer to the ICC prosecutor. There is a prosecutor's office. A state party can recommend such cases to be investigated. Or the prosecutor can suo motu take up the investigation as well. The ICC prosecutor can suo motu investigate as well. Then UN Security Council can also refer such matters to the ICC for investigation and prosecution. Once an arrest warrant is issued, the state parties who are members, they are obligated to arrest those individuals if they enter their territory. Essentially, it will restrict the movement of these individuals who are held accountable for these crimes. If an arrest warrant is issued against them, they can't freely travel around the world, as the state parties will be under an obligation under international law to arrest those war criminals. But however, the biggest problem with ICC and its ineffectiveness is because it doesn't have its own enforcement. In most cases where arrest warrants have been issued till now, in only half of the cases, arrests have been carried out. That too only leaders and officials of small countries, weak, poor and developing countries. Whereas none of the leaders and officials of major powers have ever been arrested, even if arrest warrants are issued against them. That also highlights the politicization of the Rome Statute and the ICC and its abuse and misuse. The large powers often get away with such violations, whereas small countries, some dictators will get targeted. There's a lot of criticism surrounding the ICC and the way it functions as well. Many times, UNSC has misused its power. The P5 countries have misused their power at the UN to refer cases to target their rival countries. Public prosecutor of ICC has taken up certain cases driven by self-interest and geopolitical agendas. Many state parties also have tried to misuse the provision to target some of their rivals. That is one reason why India has not signed the Rome Statute. India is not a party. Because see, India already has few internal conflicts going on, be it the Naxal conflict or Khalistan movement or Kashmir insurgency, terrorism or Northeast insurgency. So India doesn't want to be unfairly targeted by outside powers and vested interests by misusing the provisions of Rome Statute. So India and the other big powers, they are not parties to Rome Statute. So let's move on to topic number 18 and talk about India's strategic dialogue on Africa, which has been recently started with a very important global power. The question is asking, India has recently started this strategic dialogue on Africa. With which country? With which global power? Let me know in the comments. Are you aware of this development? Already 2 such summits have taken place. 2 conferences have been held where India and this country have held 2 dialogues on cooperation, on mutual assistance to each other as far as their interest in Africa is concerned. So which country is it? Is it Japan? Is it US, Nigeria, or France? Many of you are saying A. I know why you are guessing it as A. But the correct answer is not Japan. You are guessing Japan because India, Japan have an initiative called Asia-Africa Growth Corridor, where they are investing in infrastructure projects across Asia and Africa. So because of that, I think you would have guessed Japan, but Japan is not correct. The question is asking about a strategic dialogue on Africa. This is between India and United States. After India pushed for African Union's membership to the G20 in 2023, India-US have started a collaboration to focus on the African continent. As you all know, Africa is blessed with immense resources. It has hydrocarbon reserves, uranium, critical strategic minerals and rare earth elements, and abundance of land and manpower. There is a global competition which has broken out between the big powers, between India, China, US, the European powers, Russia, and even Japan and Australia. They're all competing to exert their influence and secure their interests to access African resources. So as part of this focus on Africa, recently India-US started a strategic dialogue where they are looking to collaborate, work together on certain priority areas in Africa after the African Union was added as a member of the G20. So last year, the second edition of this strategic dialogue was held. That is why the topic was in the news. Many of you may not be aware of this because it was not covered by mainstream media. See, that is the purpose of Conquer Prelims, to help you cover even some of the remotest of topics which many of you may not have heard about. Because sometimes UPSC, being an unpredictable public service commission, can throw these surprises, can pull topics from random sources. So that's why we are trying to cover as many topics as possible, not just the well-known topics, but even these remote topics which are not heard about. So this is the second dialogue that was held, the strategic dialogue between India and US on Africa. Let's look at question number 19. Topic number 19, the Amaq News Agency. The Amaq News Agency has always been in the news since many years. It's a very controversial news agency. Now, can you tell me, why is it in the news? Why is it always in the news? Why is it controversial? These are the options given here. It is related to which extremist outfit, terrorist organization, or which country? Is it related to Hamas, Islamic State, or Al-Qaeda, or the government of Qatar? It's essentially a media source which is very controversial. It's always seen in the news as well. So what is it related to? Some are saying Hamas. Some are saying Qatar. See, some of you might be saying Qatar because you are getting confused with Al Jazeera, which is the public broadcaster of the Qatari monarchy, right? Al Jazeera is also a controversial media outlet, but it is a mainstream media outlet. The Amaq News Agency is affiliated with Islamic State. Option B is the correct answer. The propaganda related to ISIS and its ideology, and any attack related to ISIS which is claimed by Islamic State, those reports and claims are brought out by this news agency called Amaq, which primarily operates on social media. The terror attacks and the videos of ISIS, its radicalization and the preaching it carries out, such propaganda is basically relayed by the Amaq News Agency, which is part of Islamic State. So it's not a mainstream news source. It's not a mainstream media outlet like Al Jazeera. Qatar's Al Jazeera might be controversial because of its reporting, but Amaq is not a mainstream media outlet. It just acts as an amplifier of ISIS ideology and ISIS attacks. and it is often in the news whenever attacks happen and ISIS claims these attacks. So last year, there was one deadly attack carried out by a faction of Islamic State known as ISIS Khorasan, Islamic State in the Khorasan region. There was a deadly terrorist attack in Russia, in Moscow, where a music concert was attacked with more than 140 people killed. Immediately after the attack, the Amaq news agency on social media claimed that ISIS was behind it. It was ISIS-K which carried out the attack. It was verified by most intelligence agencies as well that indeed ISIS-K was behind this deadly terror attack in Moscow, which was initially claimed through Amaq news agency of Islamic State. Now the question is, what is ISIS-K? Because of this deadly attack, possible question on ISIS-K can come. There could be something related to Russia. Why Russia is targeted by Islamic State, by jihadist outfits. So let's take a quick look. The ISIS Khorasan is primarily based out of Afghanistan, in eastern Afghanistan, towards the Af-Pak border region, right? In eastern parts of Afghanistan, that is where ISIS-K is based out of. It rose to prominence in 2014 when the main branch of ISIS in Iraq and Syria declared the formation of the so-called Islamic Caliphate. Since then, ISIS-K has been carrying out major terror attacks in the region. In Afghanistan, it has carried out some big attacks against the Kabul airport, against diplomatic missions, and even against the Sikh Gurudwara. Right? Even India was very concerned when these attacks happened, because any attacks on religious minorities like the Sikhs is of concern for India. There are reports that ISIS-K is linked with other terror networks in this region, which is a direct interest for India. The term Khorasan is a reference to an ancient caliphate that existed over here, which roughly covers today's Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Turkmenistan. This is where it is believed that an ancient caliphate existed over here called the Khorasan province. So the aim of this terror group is to re-establish that caliphate by toppling the governments and extending its influence into Central Asia. In fact, ISIS-K has a big presence in Central Asia as well. Of late, it has carried out a lot of radicalization and recruitment, even in Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, etc. In fact, the terrorists who carried out the Moscow attack last year, they were from Central Asian countries. Understood? So, the question is, why is ISIS attacking Russia? Why Russia faces the threat of terrorism? See, there are several reasons behind this, which goes back to 1979 and the Cold War period. In 1979, USSR had invaded Afghanistan, toppling the Afghan regime, trying to occupy the country and establish communist influence. Since then, Russia or USSR back then has been targeted by radical forces, especially the radical Pashtuns who would form the Afghan Mujahideen with the support of US and Pakistan. US and Pakistan would exploit the opportunity and sponsor a covert war against Soviet forces by creating the Afghan Mujahideen, by radicalizing the Pashtuns in this region who opposed the Soviet invasion. So since then, USSR and later Russia has been trapped across this region in battling various Islamist insurgencies and terror groups. In fact, in the Caucasus region of Russia, where the Caucasus Mountains are present in Eurasia, where Russia shares borders with Georgia, Azerbaijan, etc., you have the Caucasus region over here where insurgency terrorism has been witnessed from many, many years. Since 1990s, radical terrorism has taken root here in Chechnya, in Dagestan, and Russia has been attacked and targeted by these jihadist outfits. Understood? And also recently, Russia has played a very important role in decimating Islamic State in Syria. To protect Bashar al-Assad's regime in 2016-2017, Russia carried out a direct military intervention. It carried out airstrikes and military operations to wipe out Islamic State in Syria. So naturally, ISIS has a grudge against Russia. There have been a spate of attacks where ISIS and especially the Khorasan province, which operates from Afghanistan and Central Asia, has tried carrying out attacks in these areas where Russia is influential. It has even tried taking the attack to Russian territory, to Russian soil. So these developments concern India directly. right? The presence of terrorism in the AFPAC region is a direct concern to India, and a close friend like Russia being attacked by such terror groups is indeed a matter of mutual concern. So that's why these points that we have discussed, the Caucasus region, for example, it could come as a question. Places like Chechnya, Dagestan, it could be a map-based question because of the ISIS-K attack in Moscow. So let's look at topic number 20, animal diplomacy. Which of the following pairs is or are correctly matched? Can you look at the question here? On the left, we have different types of animal diplomacy which we have seen, and the country which might have started this initiative. Just check if it is correctly matched or not. Koala diplomacy matched with New Zealand. Panda diplomacy matched with China. Orangutan diplomacy matched with Thailand. This topic was also in the news last year. So before we discuss this, let me know the correct answer. Many are saying B. Very good. Option B is correct. 2 only. Koala diplomacy is not from New Zealand. Obviously, if you know your environment and ecology, right? If you're good in geography, you know that koala is primarily an exotic animal found in Australia. So Australia had launched koala diplomacy. China was the pioneer of animal diplomacy that started with panda diplomacy. Orangutan diplomacy was recently launched by Malaysia, not Thailand. That's why pair 1 and 3 are incorrect, 2 is correct. So B, 2 only is the right answer. Now, what is animal diplomacy? What kind of question can you expect here? See, in diplomatic relations, showing a goodwill gesture has always been part of foreign relations, not only in modern times, since ancient times. Even centuries ago, empires and kingdoms, when they would engage with other empires and kingdoms, they would often gift some exotic animals as a goodwill gesture. There are records of Indian empires gifting tigers, elephants, peacocks. So this has been a practice to create soft power, to create a goodwill, to show that we mean well for the other foreign partner. But in recent times, it is China which pioneered animal diplomacy. The pandas, the giant pandas, which are the exotic native species found in China, it started gifting out the pandas to several countries, starting from the Cold War period. Just look at the map here. China tried to win over goodwill and generate influence for itself by gifting pandas around the world to USSR, United States, Mexico, many European countries, including Spain, Germany, many Southeast Asian countries, and even to Australia. So China was the one which initially pioneered animal diplomacy, panda diplomacy. But this has always been controversial as well, on the grounds of animal rights and environmental concerns. But however, many countries have taken a leaf out of China's diplomacy, and many of them have tried such initiatives. Australia, for example, was popular for promoting koala diplomacy. When Australia hosted the G20 a few years ago, it gifted the koalas to world leaders. And as you can see here, then American President Obama, right, with the koalas that were gifted by Australia. Recently, the topic has come back in the news. It has attracted limelight and even criticism because Malaysia started a very controversial policy of gifting orangutans. Orangutans are exotic to the forests of Malaysia on the island of Borneo, which is shared between Malaysia, Brunei, and Indonesia. You find this exotic species, the orangutans, a type of ape species. Now, Malaysia started gifting them, but there was a very hidden agenda, vested interest here. Malaysia was gifting these orangutans specifically to those countries which buy palm oil from Malaysia. I hope you know Malaysia is one of the top producers and exporters of palm oil in the world. It is the second largest exporter and producer of palm oil after Indonesia. Palm oil finds a lot of application in the industry, especially in food processing. India itself is a big buyer of palm oil from Indonesia and Malaysia. But the massive palm oil cultivation and production has contributed to deforestation of Malaysian forests. The equatorial rainforest in Borneo, where orangutans are found, where they are native, has faced a lot of destruction, leading to environmental degradation and a threat to the very survival of the species. So a lot of criticism came up against Malaysia that its blind pursuit of palm oil production was destroying the orangutan. Its global image had been affected. So that is why it started gifting orangutans to those countries which imported palm oil from Malaysia, to send out a message that orangutans are safe in our country, that palm oil production is not harming the orangutans. And it was basically trying to build cooperation to conserve the species and as well as to protect the forest areas. But environmental groups and activists were heavily critical of this policy, which even led Malaysia to tweak the policy later. So last year, it was very much in the news, reported widely in mainstream media. So there could be a possible question here. Hello everyone, welcome back to the session. Apologies for the slight interruption. There has been a technical glitch. So we were trying to fix the technical error. If at all there are buffering issues or a mismatch in the audio video, what you can do is later, once the video processes on YouTube, you can come back and watch it later as well, just to get that finer quality. But still, I think the video is fine. We can continue. We just have 10 more topics to go. So let's keep the spirits up. Let's start with topic 21, UNRWA. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees provides humanitarian aid to Palestinian refugees residing in which of the following regions? Can you answer this question? The UNRWA, which has been in the news since 2023, it provides relief, humanitarian assistance to Palestinian refugees in a specific region. In which region? These are the options. The correct answer would be option B. The Palestinian refugees settled in Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and Gaza Strip and West Bank, including East Jerusalem. So these Palestinian refugees present in the Levant region, they are taken care of by the UNRWA. So let's understand this topic in detail. It is very, very important. The UNRWA is a specialized agency of the UN. It was established in 1949 by the UN General Assembly following the first Arab-Israel war, when Israel violated the two-state solution and declared unilateral independence in 1948. The Arab countries came to the support of Palestine and declared war against Israel. This conflict, and also before the conflict started, the communal riots between the Jews and the Arab Muslims had created a catastrophe which Palestinians refer to as the Nakba, where Palestinians were snatched away of their right to have their own country by Israel. Following this, Palestinians were displaced because of the establishment of Israel, where Jews would continue targeting the Palestinian Arab Muslims, and the war would lead to further displacement of Palestinians. So lakhs of Palestinians fled from this region, right? And they took shelter in the neighboring countries, in Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and rest of them were pushed into the current Palestinian territories, which is Gaza Strip, West Bank, which includes Eastern Jerusalem. So to provide humanitarian assistance and relief to this Palestinian community and their descendants till date, there is a UN specialized agency called UNRWA. Understood? Initially, it was actually supposed to provide assistance even to the Jewish population. There were Jewish refugees as well, triggered by this conflict. So UNRWA initially was meant for refugee protection and assistance in the Near East, which is Israel, Palestine, and the Levant region. It was supposed to give assistance not only to the Palestinian refugees, but even the Jewish refugees as well. But after Israel established itself, won the war as well, it started taking care of the Jewish refugees on its own. The Israeli government took responsibility of its refugees from 1952. So since then, UNRWA has exclusively focused only on the Palestinian refugees present in these 5 areas. Today, the descendants of these refugees stand at more than 5 million, close to 6 million refugees are present in all these countries. You can see the map as well. In Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and in Gaza Strip and West Bank, which are occupied by Israel, there are multiple Palestinian refugee camps where relief material and assistance is provided through UNRWA. Many countries donate to this UN specialized agency, including India. India is a big donor. Almost every year we provide donations to UNRWA, which is a commitment for the Palestinian people that India has made. Now, what will happen to Palestinian refugees outside of these areas? Those refugees would be taken care of by the UNHCR, just like any other refugee population. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees will address the humanitarian needs of Palestinian refugees outside of these 5 areas. Now, please remember, UNRWA was the first and only such agency to be created by the UN to help one particular community in one particular region dealing with one particular conflict. No such agency exists for other war zones, for other refugees, or for other conflicts. It's only for the Israel-Palestine conflict to take care of Palestinian refugees that this organization has been created as a specialized agency. That's what makes it important. Today, more than 30,000 Palestinians work for the organization. There are few foreign employees as well, but it is primarily manned by Palestinian refugees themselves, as they administer and provide aid and assistance to close to 6 million refugees across these 5 areas. Now, why are we talking about the employees of this organization? See, this organization was in the news, in the limelight, because of some of the employees of the organization. In 2023, on October 7th, when Hamas carried out the deadly terror attack against Israel, Israel alleged that several Palestinian employees of UNRWA were involved in the attack and they facilitated the attack from Hamas. This was a very serious allegation for which Israel would never give any proof, but it was enough to bring international scrutiny on UNRWA, and many allies of Israel, they even cut off funding. They suspended their funding to UNRWA, which is a critical agency taking care of 6 million Palestinian refugees. So this triggered a humanitarian concern that if the funding stops because of Israel's allegations that Palestinian refugees working with UNRWA were involved in the terror attack, and if Western powers, European powers especially, stop the funds, then how will the organization function and provide assistance to 6 million refugees? That was the big concern. But UNRWA has dismissed these allegations. Many other countries also have dismissed the concerns. In fact, India went one step ahead and increased the assistance after the controversy broke out. When other countries had stopped funding UNRWA, India provided another check for $2.5 million. In the last 6 to 7 years, India has provided up to $30 million in assistance to UNRWA. So this is India's commitment to the Palestinian cause and our commitment to the two-state solution. When the Gaza war broke out, India provided humanitarian assistance by delivering aid material at the Rafah border crossing in Egypt, which was supplied to UNRWA, which it can use to take care of Palestinian refugees. So because of all these developments, the organization has been in the news, and you can expect a question based on this. Let's look at the next question. The next topic is related to ADMM and ADMM plus. Which of the following statements is or are correct? The ASEAN Defense Ministers Meeting, ADMM, is a defense consultative cooperative mechanism amongst the 10 member countries of ASEAN. The 10 member countries are basically the 10 Southeast Asian countries. ADMM Plus meets annually to allow enhanced dialogue and cooperation amongst ASEAN and its 8 dialogue partners. India is a member of ADMM Plus. What's the correct answer? This is another important group which has been in the news. UPSC has not asked a question on this, so you can definitely anticipate one. Very good. The correct answer is option D. All the 3 statements given are correct. See, last year, the ADMM and ADMM Plus meeting took place. In fact, it is held every year now. ADMM, or ASEAN Defense Ministers Meeting, it refers to the meeting of defense ministers from the 10 ASEAN members. ASEAN is a Southeast Asian regional group, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. It includes Myanmar, Thailand, Laos and Cambodia, Vietnam. then Malaysia, Singapore and Indonesia, Philippines and Brunei. These 10 Southeast Asian countries are part of the ASEAN group, which is a political economic union. And the defense ministers of these 10 countries meet separately to discuss the security issues of Southeast Asia. This platform is called ADMM, ASEAN Defense Ministers Meeting. Now, following this, the same ministers hold a dialogue called ADMM Plus. The plus here refers to the 8 dialogue partners of ASEAN. ASEAN has given dialogue partner status to some of the big global powers which work closely with this organization. Countries like Australia, New Zealand, India, China, Japan and South Korea, and US and Russia. These 8 countries, the 8 major global powers of the Indo-Pacific, which have close relations with ASEAN, they have been recognized as the dialogue partners, the 8 dialogue partners of ASEAN. So their defense ministers are also invited to ADMM Plus meeting, which started from 2010. ADMM Plus meetings have been held from 2010. Now it has been made an annual meeting since 2017. So in ADMM Plus meetings, there are 10 ASEAN defense ministers and 8 defense ministers from the dialogue partners, including the defense minister of India. So India is a member of ADMM Plus. So through this platform, the 18 countries of Indo-Pacific, they discuss the maritime security issues like countering terrorism and piracy, stabilizing the trade routes, dealing with organized crime, especially in the Golden Triangle region near Myanmar, Thailand and Laos, tackling drug trafficking, arms trafficking, dealing with maritime threats, providing disaster management assistance for humanitarian relief. So this is a priority of ADMM Plus. So since 2017, ADMM Plus meetings happen every year annually, and it's a platform for the 18 countries to come together to discuss mutual security concerns. Every year, Rajnath Singh, the Indian Defense Minister, has been participating in recent years, and every time we raise the security concerns of the Indo-Pacific. Now let's look at topic number 23. Operation Sankalp, which was in the news. Indian Navy's Operation Sankalp is focused upon what? Providing humanitarian assistance and disaster relief in East Africa, safeguarding India's shipping interests and trade routes across Arabian Sea, protecting the EEZ of Maldives, Sri Lanka and Madagascar, countering Pakistan-sponsored terrorism along the maritime boundary. What is the right answer? This is another topic that had hit headlines last year. So let's see how many of you can answer this. B. Very good. B is indeed the correct answer. See, Operation Sankalp was launched by Indian Navy back in 2019 when there was a lot of disturbance going on in the Persian Gulf. There were a lot of tensions between US and Iran. There were few attacks against oil tankers and cargo ships that were headed towards India near the Hormuz Strait. So to tackle these threats near Hormuz Strait, which is a choke point, and to stabilize the shipping routes coming from Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman in the Arabian Sea, Indian Navy launched Operation Sankalp. Since then, this operation has expanded across this region. In 2020, 2021, and recently in 2023, 2024 as well. Indian Navy has been conducting major maritime operations across this region, stretching all the way until Gulf of Aden, covering Bab al-Mandeb Strait, which is another important choke point that links Arabian Sea with Red Sea, covering Horn of Africa region near Somalia, as multiple threats have emerged for shipping and trade routes. There is the threat of Somalian piracy. Then recently from Yemen, the Houthis have been launching attacks against cargo ships since the start of the Gaza war. So, to safeguard these shipping routes, which are very vital for India's economic and security interests, Operation Sankalp has been scaled up. And last year, if you remember, Indian Navy along with Indian Air Force carried out a major operation, a daring anti-piracy operation, far away in the Arabian Sea, closer to Horn of Africa, and we successfully protected a cargo vessel from a hijacking attempt. Many such hijacks have been disrupted by Indian Navy under Operation Sankalp. So it's an ongoing maritime security operation aimed at securing our trade interests and shipping routes from Persian Gulf till Horn of Africa. Is this clear? Let's look at topic 24. The Shahid Beheshti Port Terminal, located at the strategic Chabahar port, was in the news. Consider the following statements. There are 3 statements given. Let's see how many of you can answer this. Chabahar is a deep water port in the Sistan Balochistan province of Iran. It is the closest Iranian port to India, but it is located in a closed sea, which makes access to ships difficult. How many of the statements are correct or incorrect? Based on that, try to answer this question. Take a few seconds. Some are saying C, some are saying B. Okay. Statement 1 and 2 are correct. 3 is incorrect. So option B becomes the right answer. 1 and 2 only. Let's understand why it was in news, and let's study the importance of Chabahar port and what kind of question can come from here. As you know, Chabahar port has been one of India's strategic investments since 2003. Initially, it was the Vajpayee government which gave a push for this strategic project with Iran, and later Manmohan Singh government and the Modi government have taken forward the initiative. India has invested millions of dollars to develop Chabahar, a strategic port located here facing the Gulf of Oman, located very close to Hormuz Strait and Persian Gulf, which is a critical shipping lane for India. See, these trade routes are very crucial for us because 85% of our oil energy requirements is met through imports. 60% of these oil imports come from the Gulf, from the Persian Gulf. That is why safeguarding this trade route is critical. And also, India wanted access to Afghanistan and Central Asia. Chabahar port could give us that alternate route to bypass Pakistan, and without depending on Pakistan through the sea route, we can use Chabahar port to link with Zahedan in Iran, where there is a Afghan road present, the Zaranj-Dilaram highway, which is also sponsored and built by India. So India's ambition was to use this trade route from Chabahar port through a Chabahar railway line to connect with Zaranj-Dilaram highway, so we could further link this with Central Asia and build connectivity with Central Asia. So this port is the closest Iranian port to India. That's why you need to be a little good with geography as well. Other important ports like Bandar Abbas is a little far away, located towards the Persian Gulf. So the closest Iranian port for India would be Chabahar, and it is a deep water port located in the Sistan Balochistan province of Iran. The Balochistan region, where you find the Baloch people, it extends from Pakistan towards Iran as well. So this right here would be the Sistan Balochistan province. So that's why statement 1 and 2 are absolutely correct. But statement 3 is wrong, because this port actually has access to open sea. You can easily find out in this map. It doesn't have restricted access. It's not in a closed sea. It is actually present in an open sea. That is what guarantees easy access to cargo ships. That's what makes Chabahar so lucrative and strategic. Located right next to the Gwadar port of Pakistan, which is part of China-Pakistan economic corridor. So it allows India to counter China-Pakistan nexus as well. Now, India has been operating a terminal here, the Shahid Beheshti terminal, from a long time. India Ports Global Limited had won the contract, and every few years we were renewing the contract. In fact, in 2017, when the project was fully completed, we signed a trilateral agreement as well with Iran and the then Afghan government to establish a trade corridor through Chabahar port. We even started sending shipments and started trading between India and Afghanistan through Chabahar port. But however, the Taliban takeover of the country and the disruption in India-Iran relations because of American pressure has affected our ability to use Chabahar port. But last year, there was a big positive development due to improving India-Iran relations. We secured a long-term contract, a 10-year contract where India will not only control the Shahid Beheshti terminal and its operations, but we are making fresh investments up to $120 million to further expand the facilities and the infrastructure. So this was a very big agreement, a big achievement. It shows the normalization of India-Iran relations, which has been affected since 2018. As India fell under American pressure to follow the sanctions against Iran, Iran had downgraded the ties with India. It had even cancelled the Chabahar railway project with India. But now India is making a slow comeback. Last year, a very important agreement was signed, a long-term contract where India Ports Global Limited will not only maintain and operate the Shahid Beheshti terminal, but will invest fresh funds to further expand the facility as well. When India-Iran signed the contract and made the announcement, the US threatened India with sanctions because the US has a law known as the CAATSA, Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act. This law, passed by the US Congress, declares North Korea, Iran and Russia as the three adversary states of United States, and they are placed under primary sanctions. Especially their defense and oil sector have been placed under sanctions. Any country which trades with them, which invests in these countries or works with them in the defense and oil industry, they will also be hit with secondary sanctions. In fact, when we procured S-400 missiles from Russia, US had threatened India with secondary sanctions. Now similarly, when the Chabahar deal was announced, the new contract was announced, US again warned India of possible sanctions over this project. That is what makes this so important. There could be a possible question. Coming to question 25. Now we have a few small questions, small topics, so let's go through them quickly. This question is based on the naval bases that were in the news. Last year, there were some important strategic naval bases that were always reported in newspapers. So from that, I have picked a question and designed a question based on that. So try to answer this. Naval bases that were in news around the world matched with the countries. See if they are correct. The Cam Bay matched with Cambodia. Kota Kinabalu matched with Thailand. Guam matched with Philippines. How many of these pairs are correctly matched? Don't worry, I'll show you the maps as well. I'll exactly tell you where it is located so that if there is a geography-based, map-based question, you should be able to answer this. Okay, let's check one by one. The Cam Bay Naval Base is a very popular naval base since the Cold War period. It's in Vietnam, not in Cambodia. Kota Kinabalu is not in Thailand. It was recently in news. It is in Malaysia. And why were these naval bases in news? They were in the news because as part of our Act East policy and Indo-Pacific vision, Indian Navy visited these strategic naval bases last year and carried out port visits. See, we have very close defense relations with Vietnam and we are improving our ties with Malaysia as well. Last year, we had military exercises with Malaysia, such as Operation Samudra Lakshmana. We had plenty of exercises with Vietnam and Malaysia and other Southeast Asian countries under the Milan naval exercise. So as part of this military engagement under Act East policy, Indian Navy visited strategic naval bases of Vietnam and Malaysia, that is the Cam Bay Naval Base and Kota Kinabalu. The Guam Naval Base and the military station, it doesn't belong to Philippines. It's in the Indo-Pacific, but it is an American military base. So all three are incorrect. All the three are incorrect. Option D is the right answer. None of the above. So please look at the map. Please concentrate here. In Vietnam, towards the South China Sea and Gulf of Thailand, in between the two, you have the Cam Bay Naval Base, a major Vietnamese naval base. Then in the Indo-Pacific, you can see Guam over here, the American naval base in the Pacific. This map also shows the other American naval bases in Hawaii. It has a military presence in Japan and South Korea and Philippines, also in Thailand and Australia and New Zealand. Then to the south of India and Maldives, there is Diego Garcia, located in the Chagos group of islands, which was a British Indian Ocean territory until recently. The Chagos Island dispute was a dispute between Britain and Mauritius. Last year it was settled. Britain has finally given up sovereignty, returned Chagos Islands back to Mauritius. But however, Britain and US retained Diego Garcia, which has been a major naval base since the Cold War days, since the World War era. So, Diego Garcia remains a major American military base in the Indian Ocean. Apart from this, Kota Kinabalu, the Malaysian naval base, which was in the news, where Indian Navy visited. This is where it's located, facing South China Sea, where active disputes are going on. Right? So that is why such locations become very important. You can easily get map-based questions based on this. Topic number 26. The New Caledonia riots. The New Caledonia riots, which happened in a French overseas territory, was in the news. So can you answer this question? The French overseas territory of New Caledonia seen in news is located in which part of the world? Again, a map-based question. Is it in Western Indian Ocean? Is it in Southwest Pacific, Mid-Atlantic, or Southern Indian Ocean? Just like Britain has few overseas territories, France has overseas territories in Indian Ocean and as well as in the Pacific. So where is this island called New Caledonia located, where massive riots and violence broke out last year? B, but some are saying D and C as well. The correct answer is B. It's located in Southwest Pacific Ocean. Look at the map here. Next to Australia and right above New Zealand, in the southwest part of the Pacific Ocean, this is where the French overseas territory of New Caledonia is located. Is that clear? Even after decolonization, France retained some of these overseas territories. There is a French overseas territory in Indian Ocean as well, near Mauritius and Madagascar, called the French Reunion or La Reunion. Then in Pacific, in Southwest Pacific and Southern Pacific, there are few French islands present. So here, the natives, the indigenous people, they've always opposed the presence of the French population, the French citizens. Previously, French citizens from France, they wouldn't have voting rights here. Although they could settle here, they wouldn't have voting rights. Voting rights was limited only to the native indigenous community here. But last year, France pushed a new bill which would give voting rights to French citizens as well from mainland France. So this led to a lot of opposition by the native indigenous groups. They protested against it, which turned into violence and riots in New Caledonia. France had to deploy additional forces all the way from Europe to Southwest Pacific to contain the violence which had broken out. So that is why New Caledonia is important. Next, topic 27, the Oslo Guidelines, which was also in the news last year. Read the question. The Oslo Guidelines of 94, which was updated in 2006, deals with what? Is it related to the Israel-Palestine conflict for implementing the two-state solution? Is it related to principles of humanitarian assistance, disaster relief for UN agencies? Or upholding war ethics in military conflicts, or minimizing the impact of misuse of technology on small nations? Let's see how many of you can answer this. I'm sure most of you will get it wrong, because most of you will confuse this with Oslo Accords, which was also brought out in 1990s, in 93, 94, 95. Option A is definitely not correct. This is referring to Oslo Accords between Israel and Palestinian Liberation Organization, which was related to the settlement of the Palestinian question. But the question is asking Oslo Guidelines of 94, updated in 2006. Correct answer is B. It provides a set of principles for humanitarian assistance and disaster relief for UN agencies, especially when foreign military vessels and civilian assets are used during times of disaster to provide relief to a disaster hit area. A set of guidelines are present called the Oslo Guidelines. It was introduced in 1994 so that it can guide UN agencies which are providing humanitarian assistance and disaster relief by using foreign military vessels or foreign military assets and civilian defense assets. These guidelines were updated again in 2006 because During the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, there was widespread deployment of military forces from multiple countries to provide disaster management assistance in the Indian Ocean. The deadly Indian Ocean tsunami had affected multiple countries, causing widespread destruction, including in India. So many foreign navies were deployed, air force from other countries were deployed. Even India provided assistance to other countries. Even though we were affected, we provided defense assistance and military assistance. Right? Through our naval forces, we supplied disaster management assistance to others. So when foreign military assets, civilian assets are used for disaster relief by UN agencies, set of guidelines were drafted. There was a guideline in 94 itself, but it was revised and updated in 2006 following the Indian Ocean tsunami. And these guidelines were in the news last year. Countries were debating whether we should update and cover the new threats, the new disasters which are happening, and what should be the role of military agencies, military assets and civilian defense assets in assisting UN agencies in providing disaster relief operations. So that's why the topic was in the news. Next, topic 28, related to India's defense relations with one important partner. Which country has recently identified India as a top-tier security partner in its National Defense Strategy 2024? A certain country last year brought out its National Defense Strategy, under which it has designated India as one of the top-tier security partners. That shows the close defense relations we have with this particular country. Can you tell me which country is it? Is it US, Russia, Australia, or France? What's the right answer? Last 3 topics to go. B, D, C. Okay. Correct answer is Australia. Australia was the one which brought out the National Defense Strategy in 2024, under which it has listed India as a top-tier security partner. See, in recent months, there have been a lot of developments in India-Australia defense relationship, which can come as a prelims question. That's why I chose this topic. So let me list out the key points one by one so you can make a note as well. India-Australia, we are part of the Quad grouping, a diplomatic group to enforce rules in the Indo-Pacific to counter China and the maritime disputes it has triggered. We also participate in a multilateral naval exercise, the Malabar exercise with Japan and United States. We also have bilateral military exercises such as AUS Index. Understood? India, Australia have also signed a logistics support agreement through which Indian Armed Forces and Australian Armed Forces can rely on each other's military bases for logistical supplies. This enhances the operational range of our armed forces. In fact, last year, Indian Navy and Air Force used the Coco Island military base of Australia, the Coco Keeling Island, which is located in Indian Ocean. It's a major Australian naval base and a military base that was used by Indian Air Force and Indian Navy for logistical support. The Coco Keeling Island and even the Christmas Island of Australia, which are strategic islands near Indonesia, right? Located in the southeastern part of the Indian Ocean. These islands were in the news, where Indian Armed Forces used Australian military facilities for refueling resupplies. We also have a 2+2 ministerial dialogue, which we covered yesterday. We are also collaborating in critical areas like cybersecurity, for example. There is a cybersecurity partnership between India and Australia. We are also taking part in a critical mineral investment partnership. India and Australia have launched a critical mineral investment partnership to assist each other in scouring for critical minerals and strategic minerals. So this clearly shows you that Australia is a key partner. It looks at India as a key defense partner. We have very close intelligence sharing as well. Especially in recent times, pro-Khalistani activities in Australia has become a threat, and Indian and Australian intelligence agencies are working together to put down the pro-Khalistani elements present in Australia. We have seen attacks on Indian diplomatic missions in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne in recent months. So that's why the defense relationship is important, and I think all these points could be relevant for the exam. Next, topic 29. AUKUS, again from the same region, from the South Pacific, the AUKUS initiative was in the news. Which of the following statements is or are correct? AUKUS partnership is composed of two pillars. Pillar 1 focuses on conventionally armed nuclear-powered submarines, whereas Pillar 2 focuses on advanced capability development. Japan is reported to join Part 2 of AUKUS. Which of the statements are correct? Please let me know. What could be the right answer? You might have heard about AUKUS. UPSC has already asked a mains question as well on AUKUS. But there are some new developments last year. C or B? All the three statements are correct. 1, 2 and 3. So let's explain this topic quickly. In 2021, a new security military initiative was launched called AUKUS between Australia, US and UK. Initially, under this initiative, US and UK were supposed to supply nuclear-powered submarine technology. Submarines that are propelled by small modular nuclear reactors. But these would be armed with conventional weapons. It wouldn't carry nuclear weapons. US and UK would never share nuclear weapon technology because Australia is a signatory to Non-Proliferation Treaty. It can never procure nuclear weapons, and neither can US, UK share that with Australia without violating NPT. So they are only sharing the civilian technology, which has defense application. They are sharing the nuclear-powered submarine technology with Australia to help Australia develop its own nuclear-powered submarine fleet. Because nuclear-powered submarines, they have enhanced endurance. They can remain underwater for longer duration without surfacing, unlike conventional submarines. Conventional diesel electric submarines, they have to keep coming back to the surface to recharge their batteries, to take in fresh oxygen. But nuclear-powered submarines can remain underwater for a very long time, thus adding to the stealth capability. It can avoid enemy detection. So since Australia is facing a major threat from China and the Chinese submarines from the PLA Navy, to empower Australian Navy in the Pacific, US and UK launched this initiative to share nuclear-powered submarine technology with Australia, which can carry conventional weapons. Now, AUKUS has been divided into two pillars in recent times, Pillar 1 and Pillar 2. Pillar 1 focuses only on nuclear-powered submarine technology and includes only Australia, US and UK. There is a Pillar 2 which has been recently started that focuses on critical emerging technologies. Officially, it is called Advanced Capability Development. So under this platform, these countries, they are trying to bring Japan as well into it. There are strong reports that Japan might join the Pillar 2 of AUKUS to collaborate in developing critical emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, quantum computing, etc. So today AUKUS has become a much larger security technology based group. It's not just focused on nuclear powered submarine technology, which US, UK are supplying to Australia. That is part of Pillar 1. There is a new pillar which has been added, and Japan might also join Pillar 2, where they are going to collaborate in critical emerging technologies. Coming to the last topic, Group of Friends Initiative. Which of the following statements is or are correct? The GOF, Group of Friends Initiative, was launched in 2022. It's an India-led initiative. It seeks to promote accountability for crimes committed against UN peacekeepers. What's the right answer? Let's finish this topic quickly. Then I'll be answering some of your doubts and questions at the end. So just stay for a few more minutes. I'll take your doubts as well, and then we can wrap up the class for today. What could be the right answer here? D. Some are saying C as well. Okay. All the three statements are correct. 1, 2, 3. Option D is the correct answer. See, India has been the largest troop contributing country to UN peacekeeping forces. Over the last 40-50 years, we have contributed close to 2 lakh troops, almost 1.8 lakh to 2 lakh troops for various UN peacekeeping missions around the world. From Africa to West Asia, Around the world in conflict zones, wherever UN peacekeeping missions have been set up, India has been the largest contributor in total. And out of these troops that we have contributed over the last decades, almost 177 to 180 Indian troops have been killed during these UN peacekeeping missions. In many cases, the troops have been targeted either by rebel forces which are operating in a war zone, sometimes with the government forces as well. So, the host country which is receiving the UN troops for peacekeeping purposes, they have a duty on them, they have an obligation to protect the peacekeeping troops. Because they are not on a combat mission, they are here for a peacekeeping mission. That's why they are also referred to as the blue helmets, as they wear the blue insignia of UN and they bring the mandate of peace to maintain ceasefire, to maintain stability in a conflict-hit region. The problem is, those who are responsible for the killing of the blue helmets, they are usually not punished, they are not held accountable, they are not held responsible. Now this bothers India and other troop contributing countries. Countries like Bangladesh, Nepal, many others, they are the primary contributors of troops to UN peacekeeping missions. The problem with the UN is that the entire control of peacekeeping forces and the peacekeeping mission is with P5 countries, the 5 permanent members. The UN Security Council determines the mandate of peacekeeping missions and has command control over the peacekeeping forces. And it has been ineffective to safeguard and protect the peacekeeping troops. So that's why India took matters into its own hands. Few years ago, we developed a application called Unite Aware that we shared with UN peacekeeping forces to provide situational awareness, to share intelligence, so that the peacekeeping troops can safeguard themselves against potential threats. Then in 2022, we launched a new group, a new initiative called Group of Friends Initiative. Almost 40 countries have joined the initiative and it is co-chaired by India along with Bangladesh, Egypt, France, Morocco and Nepal, which have a direct stake in protecting the blue helmets. Countries like Bangladesh, Egypt, Morocco, Nepal are also troop contributing countries. France wants to show the leadership as a permanent member of the UN and work with India to hold those criminals accountable who commit violence and crimes against peacekeepers. So this initiative has been working together to ensure that accountability is maintained. Because even in recent years, a few Indian soldiers have been killed. 2 BSF Jawans were killed in Democratic Republic of Congo and nobody was held accountable for it. So last year, the topic was again in the news. Group of Friends Initiative was in the news. Because this group has developed a database. A database has been developed to document all the crimes against UN troops and the evidence so that it can help in investigation and thus you can hold those criminals accountable who target the peacekeepers. This is in line with Resolution 2589 of UN Security Council. This was adopted in 2022 when India was holding the presidency of UN Security Council as a non-permanent member. We pushed Resolution 2589, which mandates every country, the host country that is receiving the UN troops, to be responsible for protecting them, safeguarding them, and for holding those who commit crimes against them accountable and punish them according to the law. So please remember Resolution 2589, Group of Friends Initiative, and the stand that India has taken to protect the UN troops. On this note, I complete my discussion. We have covered 30 topics with 30 MCQs along with a lot of subtopics under it. So I hope these 2 IR sessions have been useful. So this series will continue. Stage 1 of Conquer Prelims will continue till 27th of January. Tomorrow, Mukesh Jha Sir will be starting with Environment and Ecology. Then we will have Science and Tech by Hima ma'am. Then Sham Sir will take economy-based current affairs. And finally, Asta ma'am will cover government schemes, reports and indices. So I hope you guys are liking Conquer Prelims initiative. Again, apologies for the technical inconvenience today. But still, I hope the session has been useful. So join my Telegram channel. The QR code was given at the start. Just scan the QR code and I'll be sharing the PDF in a short while. Now I can give you a few minutes if you have any doubts, any questions, we can try to answer that. Sajjan Kumar says, my performance is not up to mark today. What strategy should I use? You need to revise, Sajan. Revise more, read the topics again. Go back to your basics. Mohammad Wazeek is asking, can we discuss regarding possible location of important settlement sites in West Bank? Not needed, not necessary. UPSC will not go into such details. Pillar 2 of AUKUS. In Pillar 2 of AUKUS, the focus is to collaborate between these countries to develop critical and emerging technologies, the new technologies which are coming up, like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, the newer forms of communication protocols, right? So to collaborate in these areas, Australia, US, UK, they are trying to bring Japan as well under Pillar 2 and pool their resources together to develop critical emerging technologies. Sudipto Dikshit is asking, in which country Oslo is located? Norway. Roshni is asking, can you please explain UN structure in brief? See, the UN is made up of 6 primary organs. UN General Assembly, right, which has all the member states, 193 member states. But UN General Assembly doesn't have all the powers. Clear? It can only debate, discuss, pass some resolutions. But the real authority lies with the second organ, UN Security Council. There are 15 countries in the Security Council. 5 permanent, the P5 with the veto power, and the 10 non-permanent members. UNSC has primary control over the UN itself, as all the key powers are vested with UNSC, be it imposing sanctions or countering terrorism, nuclear disarmament, dealing with wars, conflicts and disputes. All these critical powers, including controlling peacekeeping forces, is with UNSC. Then you have ICJ, International Court of Justice, which is the judicial organ that settles disputes between the member states. Then we have ECOSOC, Economic and Social Council, right, which focuses on welfare, socio-economic development. So initiatives like Sustainable Development Goals, then Climate Change Convention, they're all run through the ECOSOC. The UN Secretariat is the executive arm which implements all the policies and decisions. Then there is a Trusteeship Council which doesn't function anymore. It was set up to look after the trusteeship territories, the former colonies that existed after the Second World War. They were administered directly from the UN for some years before they could be made independent countries. So once those territories became independent, Trusteeship Council has shut its operations. These are the 6 primary organs. Rahul is asking, strengthening India-Maldives defense cooperation is important. Yes, I will cover this in stage 4 in April when we discuss the last 12 months current affairs. There I will cover the latest developments between India and Maldives. Where is the headquarters of Group of Friends? There is no headquarters for it. It's just a UN related initiative, right? So it's at the UN in New York itself. There is no separate headquarters for Group of Friends. All right, done. So that is it. Thank you so much. I hope it was a useful session. If you benefited, please let me know in the comments. And also try to type your answers in the comments so it can help other students as well. Now join my Telegram channel. I'll be sharing the PDF in a short while. Tomorrow again come back at 7 p.m. for the stage 1 of Conquer Prelims, as it will continue till 27th, and Mukesh Jha Sir will be taking Environment, Ecology, Current Affairs. That is it. Thanks for watching. Take care. Have a good night.